Gonna try, gonna try, gonna try. Work till I die, till I die, till I die. I'm gonna fail and get up, 'cause I'm not giving up on my dream.
Hi my lovely Frosty fam, it's me, Karen Frost, here at Nail Decadence, back with another video. Whoop whoop. Welcome to my channel, welcome one and all. In this video we will be doing an acrylic set, so again a hashtag not polish, and these are all the bits and bobs that I'll be using. There should be links in the description box to some of these things. I can't, you know what, it's been so long I can't remember what links I've got. Anyway, yeah. These maple leaves, I told you before, I fell in love with these maple leaves. They are just so gorgeous, and there's so many colours to choose from. I love them. I got them from AliExpress, but I'm pretty sure you can get them on Amazon and eBay as well. Just look up maple leaf glitter sequins and yeah, that's what comes up. Love them. They're just so iridescent and just yummy beautiful. Anyway, let's get on with what I'm doing in the video, shall we? So I have prepared my natural nails, which means I've pushed back the cuticles, removed any dead cuticle from the nail plate, cleaned it all up, removed the natural shine, applied my tips, blended those in, and now I put on a dehydrator and primer, and now I'm applying my thin clear base. I always apply a thin clear base. It gives the nail protection against staining from the acrylic coloured powders. It also gives you something to file back to, so once you file back to the colour, once you've hit clear, you know that you don't need to file anymore. There's no reason to remove that thin clear base unless it has lifted in some way, then it's best to remove that part, but there's absolutely no reason to file off the thin clear base. Leave it on there, that way you are protecting your natural nail and you don't have to keep re-prepping your natural nail every 2 weeks. All you have to do is prepare the grow out area, yeah, so it saves you from over filing, essentially over filing your natural nail. That's why I leave my thin clear base on. Right, so what I'm doing at the moment is I'm doing a reverse French, so I'm creating my extended nail bed and I'm comparing that with my other hand to make sure that I have a similar length to the extended nail bed, so that it's a similar shape to what I've previously done, because I want them to match, you know. I don't want the two fingers to look on each hand to look totally different, so I'm just making sure that it came down as far as it did on the other finger on the other hand, and I'm also making sure that I'm covering my natural free edge as well, because I don't like to see that, so I'm making sure that my cover pink is masking that natural free edge. I really don't like seeing that underneath a clear nail. It just bugs me. I don't know why, it just does. I just don't like the look of it, so I always try and mask that as best I can. And now I'm going to apply my bead by the cuticle area, blend that in. Remember to keep it thin at the cuticle area, but build your apex in the back third. I don't personally use the cover pink to build my apex. I use clear, as you can see now. I've applied that clear bead. It's my personal preference. I don't build nails with coloured powders, I just don't. I prefer to use my clear to do that. Coloured powders cost more than clear, so it's saving a bit of money, but also it makes sure colours last that little bit longer. But I also like the glass effect that clear gives over a colour. I just love it. Okay, you've got to see me fight with this black acrylic now. As you can see, I've made an absolute mess. This Model 1's acrylic is aimed at beginner users, so it's very slow setting, and that's not what I'm used to. I'm used to fast setting acrylic. So yeah, I had a bit of a to-do with this black. I made a bit of a mess, but you know, I managed to sort it out eventually in the end. But just remember, the Model 1's acrylic powder and liquid monomer behave differently to a fast setting. They are definitely slow setting and it will run on you. So bleed the back of the bead. I didn't bleed the back of the bead, and as you saw, what happened is it just spread everywhere and made a right old mess. So yeah, just bear that in mind if you're using the Model 1's acrylic powders. They also set, like I said, because it's not fast setting, it sets so slow. It takes so long for it to set up. It's great for beginners because it gives you loads and loads of playtime. But for me, having experience, I'm too impatient, and I actually had to sit and wait for these to set up before I could start filing, and I'm not used to having to do that. So yeah, just bear that in mind with the Model 1's acrylic. It does take a while for it to set up, which is, like I said, good for beginners, not so good for your pros, basically. Yeah. It is what it is. So as you can see, I'm just comparing that black to the other nail. Again, I want the nails to look very similar, not exactly the same, but you know what I mean, very similar. So I'm just making sure I've brought that black up, not too far, but you know, far enough to match the other fingernail on the other hand. And same with this black that I'm adding to the free edge. It's just a triangle kind of style, diagonal colour block. So I do want to make sure that it's similar on the other hand, so that's why you see me keep comparing. I'm just trying to clean up that black and remove it, because this area, the negative space area, is going to remain clear, so that's why I'm just making sure I've got no spillover from the black on the clear area, because I don't want it to get, you know, it just won't look as neat and tidy if any of the black is on that clear area. So that's why I've done that. And now, as you can see, I'm capping that black colour block with my clear acrylic. Like I said, I always cap in clear. It gives the strength. I build my apex at that point. Yeah, I love using clear to cap everything. I doubt very much that this black would be a strength powder because it's got so much pigment in it. But yeah, I just cap everything anyway. Even if it is a strength powder, I'll still cap it. So I've kept that black fairly thin, but capping it with the clear just gives it that little bit more strength and builds the nail up a little bit. I'm just trying to keep that tidy so I've got less filing to do. On to the middle finger, and as you can see, I'm using that black again. I'm applying that to the free edge and then fading that backwards. Just trying to tidy up those sides, because like I said, it takes a little while for it to set, quite a while for it to set, so you've got loads of playtime. I'm just trying to get it opaque at this point. I'm not building any strength, remember. I'll cap it with clear to build the strength. I'm just getting a good base off. Oh my gosh, phone, what is wrong with you? Why do you keep doing this? I'm not talking to you. Every video this stupid phone decides it's going to listen to my conversation and tell me something. Shut that phone, not talking to you. Oh good lord. What was I doing? Yeah, so yeah, I'm just applying the black for the colour payoff. No strength, keep it nice and thin so that you can encapsulate it with clear to get your good strength going. As you can see, before I applied that cuticle bead, I did bleed the back of the bead on my kitchen roll first. That's to help it not be so runny. That removes the excess monomer from the brush. It gives you a little bit more control, but it's still a little bit runny, so be really careful around that cuticle area. Black's a bugger, it really is. It gets everywhere and it's harder to get it off the skin, and this is so pigmented. You can see from my kitchen roll how pigmented it is. A little tip for when you are working with a acrylic powder that's really pigmented is to use a separate dapping dish for it. So get 2 dapping dishes out, one for the very pigmented colour, i.e. like the black, and then another one for your clear and the cover pink. Now because I'm using 2 different systems, I was using 2 dapping dishes anyway, because I used the monomer that goes with the system. So for the black I used, because it's Model 1's acrylic powder, I used the Model 1's monomer for it. So I had 1 dish for that, so that was to take care of the black. And then I had another monomer dish for the Nao powders. The clear and the cover pink were both Nao, so I used the Nao monomer to go with that. That I like to do that because I've read a lot on the chemistry and the chemical process of acrylic powders and monomers, and it does make a difference for using the monomer that goes with the acrylic powder. These things are formulated to work together, so I prefer to use the liquid that goes with the powder just to be on the safe side. Even though I'm technically mixing systems, I'm sandwiching that Model 1's acrylic in between Nao's acrylic powder and monomer, so it's perfectly safe that way. What I don't like to do is say use the monomer from Nao with the Model 1's powder. That's not something I'm comfortable with doing, having read into the chemistry of the recipes of acrylics, powders and whatnot. So that's my advice, would be to stick with the monomer that goes with the system of powder that you're using. So yeah, just a little tip for you. Even if you're using one system, it's always a good idea to have a separate dapping dish for a very pigmented powder like the black. What can happen is if you're not wiping your brush really well and you're only using one dapping dish, the black can contaminate your liquid, so that when you go to use the cover pink or the clear, the monomer will be contaminated and sort of grey or black looking, which will just spoil the colour of the cover pink and definitely interfere with the clarity of the clear. So just a little tip, use a separate dapping dish for your clear and cover pink and your pigmented colours, and it should make life a little bit easier for you. As you can see, I'm doing a ombre over the black, so I let that black set up first before I went in with the cover pink. This is because the black, as like I said, is so pigmented. If I was to try and ombre it straight away whilst it was wet, it would meld and mix with the cover pink and just be, it would look awful. It just wouldn't look nice. So that's why I let it set up before I go in with the cover pink. Black is not easy to ombre. It's one of the hardest things to ombre, but it's not impossible. So just take your time with it, use small beads and just play and pull down your beads in a strategic manner. Don't pull down the full bead, just pull down the very tip, very end of the bead. So you've got the front, the middle and the back of the bead. All you want to do is pull down the front of the bead when you're beginning that ombre. Don't pull it down from the back of the bead, if that makes sense, because you want to avoid shadowing. So what shadowing is you can see through, you would be able to see the black underneath the cover pink. It just doesn't look nice. That's what shadowing is. So to avoid that, you need a good amount of the cover pink to mask the black underneath, but that's also why we fade the black up the nail, so that it's got less colour underneath the cover pink, to avoid the shadowing effect. So that's why we do those things the way we do them. I'm not saying my way is the most perfect way, but give it a go. If it works for you, it's great. If it doesn't, I mean, some people, like I've mentioned before, can do an ombre in 2 beads. You know, they just one bead over the colour and then one bead by the cuticle area and bosh, they're done. Me personally, I take my time with it. It doesn't work for me that way, and I take as many beads as it takes. That's just the way I do it. Not saying that's the only way you can do it, but this is the way I do it, and if it helps you, great. If it doesn't, no worries, but give it a go and see what works for you. A lot of nail techniques are very personal, and each nail tech does something different. I'm sure if you're watching this video, you've watched many other YouTubers do nails, and we all do things slightly differently, because as you get used to doing nails, you develop your own little idiosyncrasies and techniques that work for you. So every time you watch someone do something, give it a go. And if it works for you, great. But if it doesn't, don't stress about it. There's always another way that may work for you. So yeah, just it's all about practice and time. And I know that's the hardest thing for newbies to get to grips with, but it really is. You have to practice so much to get to a stage where you're comfortable and you know what you're doing of. But you have to practice different techniques in order to develop your own. So like when I started, it was always the 3 bead method. The bead at the bead at the free edge, bead at the middle, bead at the cuticle area to build the apex. That's how I learned. But it's not a technique that stayed with me, because times have moved on, and with the not polished type of designs like this, complicated design, the 3 bead method doesn't work for that. And with this length of nail, no, you've got no chance. So, just bear in mind, there are certain rules that you start off with, but as you develop and learn different techniques, those kind of old standards kind of go out of the window, to be honest. I use as many beads as it takes. It might take 20 beads for a nail to be finished. I don't care. If that's as many as it takes that many. And with these kind of designs, it's just, it's not a simple 3 bead method at all, and certainly not for this length of nail. So as you can see, I'm just capping the nails with the maple leaves on them. This is because I'm going to be filing in the colour block nails, and I don't want to get any dust into the other nails to interfere with their pretty maple leafness. So that's why I'm capping those now, get them protected. That way I know I don't have to worry about dust getting into those nails. Again, with the clear, I'm building my strength and structure. That's why I'm looking at the nail from all different angles, making sure my apex is in the back third and that the nail is thick enough to withstand daily living, but not so thick that it's really cumbersome and bulky. And obviously I compare it to the other nails as I'm going, so that I'm getting a more uniform set of nails. Oh, will you stop it? Oh, this phone is really getting on my wick. Right, it's so distracting. How do I get it to stop listening to me? I'm not even talking to it. I'm gonna have to try and work out my settings. Anywho, what was I saying? Alright, so this that was my cushion, by the way. I didn't break wind. Oh yeah, the black tape, as you can see, I dented it with my finger. It was still shiny, it was still wet, so I've put some clear over the top of it to help it set up a little bit quicker. I wasn't going to cap the black at this point. I was going to put the maple leaves in, then cap it at the same time as I capped the maple leaves, but because it just wasn't setting up quick enough for me, because I'm impatient, I've put the clear over the top to sort of help it set up, but not. I did still have to go and sit down and have a cup of tea before I could file it. It does take a long time for that black to set up, which is, it's okay for people that take a long time to do their nails, but for me, yeah, I'm not quick, but it was a little bit frustrating for me, not gonna lie, waiting for that to set up. I'm like, oh, I want to just get it done, set up. So yeah, I went ahead, a cup of tea, came back, and it was set up so that I could file it in. So on that stripe of black, it's easy enough to just use a hand file to file that in. Make sure that it's all nice and crisp and straight, and then also use my hand file to file in the extended nail bed. Again, getting that nice and crisp and sharp, because we want it to look, you know, want it to look good. We don't want it to look all wonky and uneven. So straighten that out with your hand file. It's so awkward doing this on yourself, but it can be done, just takes a little while. Just remember, don't push down on the nail, because you will file into it. Make sure that you're only pushing against the wall of the acrylic, not down onto the nail. Don't want to do that, because it will cut into it. So as you can see, I'm just using my hand file to file in this color block, because it's kind of a wave. This part here is more of a sort of a wave pattern. It's not a straight line. That's why I'm using my e-file to get that nice and crisp, because it's impossible to do that with the hand file with it having a wave in it. The bit on the free edge, that little triangle, yeah, that was straight, but not the part up the top third of the nail. That was not a straight line, it was a curvy wave, which is what I was going for, obviously. So yeah, I'm just making sure none of the black is on the clear nail tip. So just filed off any bits that looked a bit grey or black. Make sure it's nice and clean. Then we can remove the dust, and now I'm using my brush with a little bit of monomer to brush over the nail, remove any of the dust again, because I want it to be nice and clear. Even though it's going to be matte, I still want it to be nice and clear, you know. So add that clear in, a bit of clear acrylic in with the and then add the maple leaves on top to hold them in place. I'm just spreading those maple leaves out where I want them to go, putting, you know, basically fitting as many as I can in. They're so pretty. I mean, this set would have looked nice shiny as well. So if you're going to do this, if you're going to do a design like this and have it shiny, make sure you top coat on the underneath of the nails. That gives you so much more clarity on the clear areas. But yeah, I didn't top coat the underneath on this because it's a matte set, but just so you know. So as you can see, I'm just doing the clear areas now with the clear acrylic, filling them in, building up the nail, making sure it's all encapsulated. Slightly wetter bead over the maple pieces to make sure it sinks in and I don't have any air pockets. That's annoying, don't want any air pockets. So I'm not having to cap the nail bed area. I'm just filling in those negative space areas and building up the nail to the thickness that I need it to be strong. It's a very long set of nails. You want it to be strong, but you don't want it to be too thick. So as you can see, I stop and look at the nail from all different angles, but I also compare it to the nail on my other hand. This is key to getting a uniform set. Keep comparing. You see, I'll stop and I'll look and I'll compare, and I'll make sure that it's a similar thickness to the other nail, and if it's not, I add more acrylic, because you know that's my key. I found that when I was learning, I used to have nails that are thicker than others and wider than others, and it's because I didn't stop and compare. And I swear to you, once you stop and compare each nail with each other and against the nails on the other hand, your set will become so much more uniform and consistent. It's really, that's the best tip I can give you, is stop and compare. It really does make a big difference to the final effect of how your sets look. Again, just capping those maple leaves in the clear acrylic, slightly wetter bead again, like I said, to make sure that they are totally encapsulated but without any air pockets. And then obviously I can use slightly drier beads to finish capping it off once those are covered in clear. Swiping the sides, don't forget, try and keep your shape as much as you can. Needed a bit more acrylic in that back third, so that's where I'm placing it. because I'm comparing it to my other hand as usual, and this one was a little bit low, so I just added a tiny bit more, well, it's not a tiny bit, a little bit more of clear acrylic to that apex area to make sure it's similar to my other hand. And I stop and look and make sure I've not missed any bits on the sides, look at it from all different angles, compare it to my other hand, and wherever it's needed I will just put a little bit more acrylic there. There was a little bit of a dip there by that cuticle area, so I just added a little bit more clear acrylic. So let all of that set up. So now it's filing time. Are you a Frosty filing freak? If you are not, please feel free to skip ahead to the timestamp you saw in the corner of the screen and it will take you to the next part of the video. But for my Frosty filing freaks, here we go. So again, as mentioned previously in other videos, I have various different filing routines. However, I only use one routine per set of nails. Unfortunately, I didn't realise I hadn't pressed record when I was filing these sidewalls, but you can see there on my thumb I used my hand file to file my sidewalls first of all, got those nice and straight the way I like them, and then I remembered to press record and now going around the cuticle area with a small bit to just make sure it is nice and flush to the natural nail, so that when it grows out it doesn't lift and catch on your hair or anything like that. But make sure when you're going around that cuticle area you are very, very careful not to file the natural nail and only file the acrylic itself. Once I'd finished filing the cuticle area, I switched to a carbide bit. This one is an extra fine bit, so it's not actually removing a ton of acrylic. You can see from the dust coming off, it's not removing a lot of acrylic. I needed to debulk a little bit, but not a ton. That's why I'm using an extra fine bit. So I'm just basically contouring that nail, getting the shape to go nice and in a nice semicircle. If you look down the barrel of the nail, your nail should be a nice semicircle from sidewall to sidewall, with the same thickness on each side. That's why you can see I'm looking down the barrel of the nail now, making sure that it's nice and even. You can do this with a hand file. For me, I have pain in my joints and my muscles, so it's easier for me to use my e-file than it is for me to use my hand file. So I'm just taking my time shaping and contouring that nail to make sure it's the way I want it to be. Little bit of debulking, like I said, but you can see from the dust it's not a huge amount that's coming off because it's an extra fine bit. If you're using, say, a medium carbide bit, you would remove a lot more acrylic. So the choice of e-file bits is important. You guys know, well, if you don't know, I use different e-file bits all the time. I don't have a particular set routine as to which e-file bits I use. I use loads of different ones. It all depends on the nails that I'm working on to what e-file bits I will use. I just switch and I switch between different e-file bits all the time. I'm a bit of an e-file hoarder. I've got loads of different bits for my e-file and I love to use them all. I don't have any particular favourites apart from my sanding band, which is like the one and only wonderful thing for me. I love my sanding bands. I pretty much use them all the time. They're just great because it replaces the hand file part for me when smoothing over the surface of the nail. Yeah, you can use a buff and block for that as well, but yeah, I like my sanding bits. So again, just contouring, removing any bulky bits and looking at that nail from all different angles. And you see the way I e-file, I file vertically up and down the body of the nail, but I also go side to side depending on what I'm trying to achieve. just be careful, especially with bits like this. This is not a safety bit, so it's sharp on those that top edge. If you catch your skin with that, it's definitely going to cut you. Yeah, I cut myself often, but I never actually cut anyone else. It's only myself I'm a bit aggressive with. So just be careful if you're not using a safety bit, because this bit, yeah, if it catches your finger, it's gonna cut straight in. Once I'm finished with that and I've debulked as much as I need to, I was going to use the buffing block to smooth it over, but I thought let me just straighten out the tip and the sidewalls, give them a quick once over, make sure that they are nice and straight and the way I like them to be. I'm very fussy with my nails. I'm a bit pernickety with it. I do fuss a bit. So yeah, I'm just going to make sure they are nice and straight with the free edge. Get rid of all those frills. I can't stand frills underneath the nail. Straighten out, square it off, and keep, you see I stop often and I turn my hand up straight to look at it to make sure that it's the nail is going straight and not wonky, because if you file one side more than the other, you will definitely end up with a wonky nail. So I started buffing, but this buffing block is really fine, and I found that it wasn't smoothing the nail as much as I wanted it to. So as you can see, I switched to the hand file, but I'm also going to then switch to my e-file, because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is too much work for my fingers, not having it. So that's how you can do it with the hand file. You see how I do it? Up one side, down one side, around the cuticle area, down the body of the nail like a violin, and then a little bit of vertical filing too. And then I was like, no, my hands are getting tired, back to the e-file. So I'm just tidying up the underside. I don't want the nails, the free edge, to be really thick, so I just filed a little bit of that underneath to just make it a little bit thinner on that very free edge. It just makes life easier when you're picking things up if your free edge isn't really thick and bulky. So I've switched to my sanding band like I said I would, because obviously the hand file hurts my fingers, so I'm just using my e-file to do the same thing that I was doing on the little finger with the hand file, which is just smoothing and contouring over that nail to remove any harsh lines, any squared off areas from filing the sidewalls, smoothing off, just making sure that the surface of the nail is nice and even, that there are no dips or lumps and bumps. Yeah, it's all about the smoothing, baby. Smooth it, but you don't want a nail that's totally smooth, because that gives your top coat a little bit of trouble to stick to. So you do want some demarcations, but you want the worst of them filed out with the e-file. Now this e-file bit is technically a 180 grit, so it's not a harsh grit. It just just smooths the surface enough, but not totally smooth where there's zero scratches in it, if that makes sense. That's the best way I can describe it for you. So if you're new to e-filing on yourself is really important. You have to keep that e-file bit moving. If you leave it in one area for too long, you will encounter a heat spike, which is really uncomfortable, not very nice. But if you are not practicing on yourself and you're just practicing on a silicone hand or something, you're not going to understand that at what point you have to move on from an area, because a silicone hand is not going to tell you you're burning me. So practice on yourself as much as possible so that you know how long you can keep an e-file bit in one particular area before you have to move it along. I suggest you keep it moving all the time. Do not stay in one area, but without practicing on yourself, you're not going to really understand how to move on from one area and not create a heat spike. So I'm almost finished now, giving it a little smooth over with a buffing block because I'm just being a little bit extra. When it comes to matte gel polish top coats, I find that if you've left too many demarcations, it can make it visible by the matte top coat. So that's why I'm giving it that extra smooth over with the buffing block. But like I said, I'm not making it entirely smooth. I'm just smoothing it enough so that there's still some scratches in the surface for the top coat to stick to, but not enough for it to be noticeable after I've top coated. It's a fine line between enough of the scuff marks to too many scuff marks and it being picked up by the top coat. It's very I'm finding it difficult to explain to you, but I hope you understand what I mean. When you're doing matte, you have to be a little bit more careful. So I just compare both hands, make sure that they are similar and they're looking good, so no need to carry on filing. And now it's time to top it off and keep it tough. So I've given my hands a lovely wash with some soap and warm water, gave it a rinse, dried them off, and now I'm using a wipe with some rubbing alcohol to remove any of the moisturizers that the soap may have deposited on my nails. And now I can top coat. So obviously, when it comes to top coat, we want to make sure it's a nice even coat of the top coat. We don't want it to pull at the edges. So you will see once I've finished top coating all the nails, I will go back and just run the brush over the free edge of the nails to remove any of the top coat that is pulled at the edges of the free edge. But this is essentially what the nails will look like if you kept them shiny. But this top coat is matte, so it's not going to say shiny, but yeah, this gives you an idea of what it would look like shiny. And I think it would look quite nice shiny because those leaves are so pretty, but I was really wanting to do the matte on this set. So as we are very, very close to the end of the video, there are video footage and photos, of course, at the end of the video for you to see the very finished set. But I'd like to take this opportunity right now to say thank you ever so much for coming to my channel, watching this video, spending some of your most precious time with me. Thank you, I appreciate you ever so much. If you have not done so already, please feel free to click that subscribe button, join the Frosty Fam. I'd love to have you. It's a lovely bunch over here. If you have enjoyed this video or it has helped you in any way, shape or form, do please click that like button. I'd really appreciate it, and it actually does help my little channel out. And if you feel like it, you are more than welcome to leave me a comment. I am happy to talk to you. So as you can see, I have finished curing the nails, and I'm just adding some cuticle oil around the cuticle areas. Now, because these nails are matte, I will have to rub over them with some rubbing alcohol after I have applied my oil and hand cream, because the oil makes the top coat shiny, and that's not the look I was going for. So you will see that I will rub them over with some rubbing alcohol afterwards to make sure that they are nice and matte for the finished effect of what they look like when they are done, without my hands looking dry and crusty. Nothing like, yeah, dry and crusty nails in photos, just, yeah, no, do not look nice. So yeah, here we go. Grab a wipe, grab some rubbing alcohol, and just wipe over them, remove any of the oil and cream from the surface so that they go back to being matte, but my fingers are still nicely moisturized. Anywho, there you go, that's the finished set. I hope you like it, hope you try out this design. If you do, tag me on Instagram, I'd love to see. But that is all I have for this time, my lovelies. You take care now, peeps, and I will speak to you all again very, very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
Yeah, no, you ain't no psycho. You're not like
Someday soon, I'm gonna make it.